The Japanese set Mask of Change was just fully revealed. This will be releasing in Japan on April 26th, and this is going to be roughly half of the Western set Twilight Masquerade, releasing in May and will be legal for NAIC. So today I'm just going to be giving some quick first impressions on the cards, and mostly the cards that were just revealed. I will look at some of the cards that were already revealed as well. So think of this more as a glimpse at the set and some first impressions rather than a full comprehensive set review, which I will do when we know the full set list for the English set, which should roughly just be these two sets combined. So let's start the trainers. Real quick, we do have this Ogre's Mask for the Ogrepon EXs. There's 4 colors of Ogrepon EX. They're all different. Choose an Ogrepon EX, choose a Pokemon EX in your discard pile that has Ogrepon in its name. So essentially choose an Ogrepon EX and switch it with one of your Pokemon EX in play that has Ogrepon in its name. Any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So this is an item card that can replace an Ogrepon with another Ogrepon, similar to something like Thornton or Ninja Boy in that regard. Here we have an item card, Waking Whistle. Look at the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. Put any number of basic Pokemon you find there onto your opponent's bench, and then your opponent shuffles the remaining cards back into their deck. An interesting tool for control, something kind of like Erica's Hospitality, or I believe the Egg Incubator that can look at the top and force Pokemon into the opponent's hand. I'm not entirely sure this is something that's good. I think there's better control style cards to play instead of this, but interesting and unique nonetheless. Next, we have a new A-Spec item, Secret Box. This was just revealed. And Secret Box says you have to discard 3 cards from your hand in order to use this card. So technically you need at least 4 cards in your hand because you need this and then you need 3 more. So you have to play this card and discard 3 more, so a total of a cost of 4 cards being played and or discarded from your hand. And then it allows you to search your deck for an item, a Pokemon tool, a supporter, and a stadium, and put them all into your hand. Just thinking kind of best case scenario, what kind of cards would we be searching with this card to kind of judge its power level? For item, we could get something like a Rare Candy or a Buddy Poffin, which are both strong cards. Pokemon tool, we could get Forest Seal Stone or Technical Machine Evolution. For supporter, we can get something like an Arvin or an Irida that then searches for more cards and kind of expands how many cards we're getting off of this secret box. And then for stadium card, you can get something like Town Store. Maybe you need more tools. Artisan, maybe you need more basic Pokemon. And there's also a disruptive stadium in this set as well that we'll look at. So secret box, it should be very, very good for consistency, especially in the early game, especially for decks that are trying to set up multiple evolution Pokemon, or setting up a very specific scenario. But the problem is that you're using this for increased consistency in the early game, probably, but then you don't have Prime Catcher in your deck. You don't have Maximum Belt in your deck. You don't have, if there's another kind of a spec that's really good for your deck. Maybe you're playing a control style archetype or something with high HP, so you want Hero's Cape. So Secret Box, really, really strong for consistently searching for a lot of things at one time. Also really good if you're trying to discard a lot of cards from your hand for something like Lugia. But I am tapering my expectations on this card just because it means that you're not playing Prime Catcher, and Prime Catcher is so strong, right? And also it means you're not playing the Unfair Stamp, a spec that comes out in it came out in the set that will be combined with this to make up our Western Mask set, Twilight Masquerade. So Secret Box definitely has potential, but the power level of the other A-specs around and the utility of the other A-specs around makes me feel like this is not going to be one of the strongest A-specs. Then we have Scoop Up Cyclone. Scoop Up Cyclone is a reprint A spec. Put one of your Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your hand, and it is an item. So it's just a free pick up a Pokemon, right? We have this with Penny for basic Pokemon. We have this for Professor Tauros, but it discards all the cards attached to that Pokemon. This is just a nice and easy item card that just straight up picks up a Pokemon. And you could even chain this with something like Regieleki that puts a trainer card from the discard back up into your hand. So, Scoop Up Cyclone, this can definitely see play in decks that want to specifically pick up a Pokemon with the use of an item, not a supporter, but they also want the freedom to pick up any kind of Pokemon and not lose any of the cards that are attached to it. Again, though, this makes me think control archetype or stall archetype, and those kinds of decks uh, normally want Hero's Cape at the moment. So playing this over Hero's Cape, I'm not sure if that value will be worth it. But tool cards are also going to get a little weaker. We'll see a stadium card in just a couple of minutes that supports that idea. Bug catching set. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may choose up to 2 in any combination of grass Pokemon and basic grass energy cards you find there. Reveal them and put them into your hand. So this is pretty good. It's like a Pokegear for grass Pokemon and grass energy. I'm thinking this could go with Gardenia's Vigor, the supporter that has seen virtually no play. I actually think it was in a top 8 Arctina deck at Champions League Aichi this past weekend. Just a one of to have some sort of energy acceleration. But yeah, bug catching set definitely going to be good in a deck full of grass Pokemon and grass energy. I'm thinking something like the Torterra deck that's kind of like, it's a known quantity. It's not very good, but people know like roughly what a Torterra deck should look like. If Torterra was to become more competitively viable, or we had another grass deck that was very full of grass Pokemon and grass energy, this bug catching set just makes a lot of sense to play in a grass type deck. But currently, I don't think we have that high tier grass type deck available. But things could definitely change, especially with the Grass Ogrepon EX coming out. Next, we have Handy Fan, which is a Pokemon tool. Whenever the active Pokemon this card is attached to takes damage from an opponent's attack, move an energy from the attacking Pokemon to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So definitely a neat way to maybe mess up your opponent's energy, thinking like against a Charizard deck. Charizard EX Pidgeot decks only play about 6 energy. So if you could move an energy to a Bibarel and then move an energy to a Pidgeot and move an energy to a different Charmander, so then their energy's all spread out, they could get stuck without being able to attack. So it's a pretty interesting tool card, but most of the time for a control deck, you're going to want to have an HP buffing tool on, like Bravery Charm or Hero's Cape or Defiance Vest. So just because of the nature of this card probably being best install or control, I feel like it's going to have to battle it out with those HP buffing tools to see which one actually gets more use. But a unique and interesting effect nonetheless. Next, we have a supporter card, Kieran. It allows you to choose one, and I always love these bimodal supporter cards. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon, so a switch effect. And then the other one you could choose is that your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active EX or active V Pokemon. Now that's actually really good because the reason to not play this card, if this was the only effect, the buffing 30 damage effect, would be because you may play against a deck that doesn't have EX or V Pokemon. Maybe you're playing against a fully single prize deck, or you just are playing against a deck with EX and V Pokemon whose HP threshold is not too much for your damage output to handle, so you don't need this extra damage against some decks. But the redeeming factor of this card is that at the very least, it can be a switch card, right? So I do think this card will see play because of that mode you can select. At the very least, you can always just use it as a switch when you need it. And at the very best, you can use it to reach a knockout that you wouldn't have reached prior. I'm also specifically thinking that this plus 30, it's probably going to be a pretty big deal in the Charizard mirror. So Charizard already plays like a Penny or a Toro, or we even saw Torad's list with 2 Toros for moving your Pokemon. This Kieran card will probably fit in there very nicely because then you also have that plus 30 damage effect as a potential, so you can one-shot a Charizard EX when they're at 2 prize cards remaining, which would normally just do 300. Now you'd be doing 330. So yeah, this card should see play, and definitely thanks to the modality of it. Next, we have another supporter, Carmine. If you go first, you may play this card during your first turn, discard your hand, and draw 5 cards. Definitely interesting. It doesn't say that you can only play this on your first turn. So, assuming that you can play this at any turn in the game to discard your hand, draw 5, I could see decks that want to play this, maybe like Lugia, turn 1 Luminion for Carmine, dump your hand, draw 5. Doesn't seem too bad, right? Uh, not a card that I'm like particularly excited about, but I could see it fitting into specific kinds of decks. Next, we have Hassle. You can only play this card if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn. It doesn't say damage in the translation, so it looks like it just has to have been knocked out. Look at the top 8 cards of your deck and put up to 3 of them into your hand. That's really strong for any sort of combo deck. I think I remember when this was revealed, somebody saying it's a shame that Evolving Skies Zoroark is rotating out now when this card's released, because like a combo deck that needs specific Pokemon or specific energy, things like that, comes to mind when I see this card. So we could definitely still find other kind of archetypes that this can go in. An interesting supporter card. I like to have something like this in the format, especially since Raihan just rotated. Next, we have Festival Grounds. All Pokemon in play that have any energy attached to them cannot be affected by special conditions, and it heals special conditions from Pokemon that have any energy attached. But there's also Pokemon that have Festival Ground related abilities. So this Thwacky says if your active Pokemon has the ability Festival Lead, you may search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. And then this Festival Lead ability is if Festival Grounds is in play, this Pokemon may use an attack it has twice. If the first attack knocks out your opponent's active Pokemon, you may attack again after your opponent chooses a new Pokemon. So, like, for example, this Stage 1 Applin has Do the Wave, 20 damage for each of your benched Pokemon, so it does 100, but you could use it twice with Festival Grounds as in play. I will be interested to know if this allows you to use technical machine attacks twice. Uh, yeah, I'd be interested to know if you could like attach a TM evolution and then use it twice to evolve like 4 Pokemon, or a de-evolution and then devolve your opponent's stage 2s to stage 1s and then stage 1s to basics. Or any of the other like Crisis Punch or anything like that. So I'm not sure if that kind of ruling has been discussed yet, but leave it in the comments down below if you know anything about that, if you can use technical machine attacks with this kind of Festival Lead ability. But moving on, we also have this Goldeen with the Festival Lead. It can use its attacks twice. Let's see, we have Swirlix with the Festival Lead. If Festival Grounds is in play, you can use this attack twice. And then, of course, we have Festival Grounds. So yeah, I just wanted to go through that because Festival Grounds kind of has those effects that are not printed on the card, but are printed on other cards. So I just wanted to go over that real quick. Now, Jamming Tower, this is the strongest stadium we've had released in a while, I think. Pokemon tools attached to Pokemon in play have no effect. We've seen a little bit of a drop-off, actually a massive drop-off in stadium cards after Path to the Peak rotated. We're seeing decks sometimes playing 0 stadiums. We're seeing things like Charizard just play 1 collapsed stadium. So Jamming Tower, Pokemon tools have no effect. This is going to turn off HP buffing tools like Bravery Charm and Hero's Cape. It's going to stop damage buffing tools from happening if they can't get the stadium out of play, like Maximum Belt and Defiance Band. It's also going to stop technical machines from working. So, Jamming Tower, definitely very interesting card. I definitely expect it to see play. So, if your deck relies on stadium cards, we might see stadium cards coming into decks at higher counts again. But the problem for a deck like, let's say, Gardevoir that uses HP buffing tools, you can't really prevent this Stadium card from coming into play and shutting off your HP. Same for Control and Stall archetypes. You can't really stop this Stadium from coming into play. I don't think we have anything in format that allows or that says like your opponent can't play stadiums from their hand or something like that as an ongoing effect. I'm sure we have attacks that say that, but thinking back to like the Ninetales and Expanded, I don't think we have anything that just overall shuts off stadiums from coming into play. So this jamming tower should be annoying for some decks. And then we have one more ace spec here, Legacy Energy. As long as this energy is attached to a Pokemon, it provides every type of energy, but only one energy at a time. So it's a rainbow. And I definitely think looking at this, the first deck that comes to mind is Lugia. As long as this card is attached to a Pokemon when it's knocked out by damage from an opponent's Pokemon's attack, your opponent takes one less prize card. The requirements there are a little specific. It has to be knocked out by damage. It can't be knocked out by an effect that's not an attack, like something like Radiant Alakazam moving damage. It also can't be knocked out by something like Star Requiem or Frenzied Gouging. It has to be specifically knocked out by damage from an attack. And if that happens, the opponent takes one less prize card. So interesting effect, interesting energy. Any deck that's really hoping for like just a plain old rainbow energy would want to play this. So that's why I'm thinking about Lugia. It'll let your Lumineon attack. It'll let your Radiant Charizard attack with other special energies on it. Something that Luminous Energy cannot do. So interesting for that, but not exactly the number one ace spec that I'm trying to play. Now let's look at some of the Pokemon. And like I said, I'm going to skim through. I only want to look at the new ones mostly and the important ones as well. So this will be a combination of important and new Pokemon that we look at today. This Volbeat does have a bit of an interesting attack. If you go first, you can use this attack turn 1, and it searches your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and puts them on your bench. So interesting little attack, call for family, but you can use it going first. I really, really like these kinds of things. For now, we do have Rotom V, which is like the default support effect to use on your first turn when you can't attack, but I do like that. And then Illumise has kind of an opposite kind of effect. You can use this attack only if you go second during your first turn and shuffle one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and all cards attached to it into their deck. I think this is much worse, but it is kind of cute. And if your opponent sets up and they go like, okay, one Charmander, one Pidgey, one Bidoof, and then you Slowing Perfume and you shuffle their Charmander back into the deck, and now they don't have a Charizard next turn. I think that's kind of funny, but likely won't see play. We'll just take a quick look here at the Ogrepons. This non-EX Ogrepon is absolutely awful. Like they could have let Mountain Stroll actually accelerate energy to your Pokemon or something. Like even if it just said attach these energies to any Ogrepon in play, that would have been amazing. But instead, this card is like awful. We do have Teal Mask Ogrepon EX though. This is probably the best Ogrepon EX card we've seen revealed. The ability Teal Dance. Once a turn, you may attach a basic grass energy from your hand to this Pokemon, and then draw a card. So that's really, really strong, especially since it's grass type and the damage scales off of energy attached. So this will be taking out Charizard EXs left and right, probably. You just need like an energy switcher, maybe play Gardenias or an ability that allows you to move energies from one Pokemon to another so that you can power this up like in one turn, essentially. But yeah, this Teal Mask Ogrepon is definitely something we're going to want to look out for when evaluating the new set, the new meta, NAIC format. Then we have the Fire Ogrepon. It's pretty cool because if you take a hit with one of your other Ogrepons and then you use the mask change card, the Ogre's Mask card, to change into the fire one, the Wrathful Hearth is going to do damage based off the amount of damage counters on your Ogrepon. So that's a neat thing that you can do if you play Fire Energy or Luminous Energy or even the new A-Spec Rainbow Energy. This Frostlass, this is just like a classic kind of card that I love. The ability Freezing Curtain. During Pokemon checkup, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon in play with an ability except any Frostlass. So in theory, like you set up 4 of these and then all of your opponent's Pokemons with abilities are getting 1 damage counter between each turn. That's just kind of crazy, but yeah, probably a little too weak for the pace of the current game, but you never know. This is a really cool ability, so maybe something can be done with it. Then we have this Palafin and Palafin EX. Palafin EX, the ability says that it can only be put into play with the effect of Palafin's 0 to Hero, and this is a 340 health stage 1 EX with an attack that does 250 and then can attack next turn. So it does have to switch to attack again. But the 0 to Hero ability that allows this card to come into play reads once during your turn when this Pokemon moves from the active to the bench. So active to bench. You may search your deck for a Palafin EX and switch it with this Pokemon. And then, yeah, this gets shuffled into your deck. So you have to move it from active to bench. It becomes the Palafin EX. And then you have to get the Palafin EX into the active to use its Giga Impact attack for 250. So interesting stuff. I'm not sure if that combo is worth pulling off. Like, this does have massive HP. 250 is not a bad number to hit. It's not a great number to hit. And then it also can attack next turn. So a lot of switching back and forth needs to happen. Very, very unique, very interesting. Not entirely sure that it's good. Then we have an Iron Bundle. It has the Interjet attack, 60 damage, and then switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. If you did, then switch out your opponent's active to the bench. Your opponent chooses the new active Pokemon. Interesting Iron Bundle, again, making people switch their Pokemon, so I like that little kind of theme that the Iron Bundle cards have. Nothing to write home about, but definitely a neat attack and effect. Then we have the Water Ogrepon. It comes with the Sob attack, just a nice little retreat lock in case you need it. And then Torrential Pump does 100 for 3 energy, and then you may shuffle 3 energy, attach this Pokemon into your deck. And if you do, this attack also does 120 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This just looks like it finds a home in Chi and Pal Baxcalibur pretty easily. The Torrential Pump attack is very strong, though, so we could see this even work maybe with like Water plus DTE, and then it does 80 and 100 split. So definitely a strong attack. We know that 3 energy snipe attacks are strong. You know, we've had Rapid Flow, we've had Moonlight Shuriken. Even the Delphox V has seen some experimentation. So we know this kind of effect is strong, and it's on a basic Pokemon, and the energy cost isn't like weird or anything. So this should definitely see play at some point. Then we have Luxray EX. Luxray EX, this one can probably combine pretty well with Luxray V, actually. So Luxray EX has the Piercing Glint attack for colorless. It does 120. Or, of course, if you're using a DTE, that'll be 100. Look at your opponent's hand and discard one card you find there. So just discarding any sort of card. This can go well with, like I said, early game using Luxray V to remove trainers, Eri to remove item cards. And then you come in with this Luxray EX and it can just discard anything. It can discard a Charizard, it can discard an energy, or it can even discard one of the things that Eri and Luxray V can discard, you know, a trainer or an item card if you need to. So the just generalizability of discarding any sort of card, very, very strong. So this is definitely an interesting card. And then it also does 250 for 2 lightning, and you discard all energy from this Pokemon. This Abra says once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active, you may shuffle it and all cards attached to it into your deck. So, like, you can do neat little, like, Jet Energy Abra up, shuffle it back in, shenanigans against Stall or something. Just a cute card, cute effect to mention. This Monkey Dory card is actually really interesting. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon has any darkness energy attached to it, you may move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So, to make use of this effect, I think there's a few things you need. One, you need extra bench space on your deck in your ideal setup for this Pokemon. 2, you need to either be damaging your own Pokemon with something like Psychic Embrace, or maybe like an attack, or your Pokemon need to be bulky enough that they're regularly surviving popular attacks in the meta so that you will have damage on your Pokemon. And then either you're playing Darkness Energy or you're playing Luminous Energy, or you're in a deck that doesn't mind playing a split of energy. So like Earthen Vessel might already be part of your deck and you could just easily find that Darkness Energy. And then you're also playing a deck that has low energy requirements for your other Pokemon, for your main attackers, because you are going to need to take an attachment for turn getting an energy onto this, or you have other ways to accelerate energy in the deck. So this is incredibly strong if used correctly, but I think it's very, very, very specific of how, of what kind of deck can actually work with this card. Then we have Fighting Ogrepon EX. The ability is Cornerstone Stance, and you prevent all damage from attacks done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon that have an ability, and then Demolish does 140 and goes through all effects. So it pretty much just has Alolan Vulpix V-Star's attacks effect on an ability, which is better because you don't have to attack to use it, but it's worse because Canceling Cologne goes through it. So if this card becomes popular, I think we can just see Canceling Cologne included in decks. I actually think there were some Canceling Colognes running around in the Champions League Aichi top 16 lists, but I don't think that this card was out yet for that tournament. I could be wrong though, but yeah, I think just looking at this ability, very obvious that like Canceling Cologne can answer it, but then if you're playing multiple Ogrepons, your opponent's probably not playing multiple Canceling Colognes, so definitely interesting card. Also, like, I just think this can go into a control deck, right? Slap a Hero's Cape on it and then just sit there in the active while your opponent tries to figure out a way to damage this thing. Because a lot of important Pokemon right now have abilities. You know, you got Charizard EX, you got Radiant Charizard, you've got Cramorant in Lost Zone decks. Gardevoir EX has an ability, but there's also plenty of Pokemon that don't have an ability in the meta, so I don't think this card's crazy, but definitely something to look out for and know it exists. We do have a good Dracloak. I've never known how to say this Pokemon's name, but the middle stage of Dragapult EX. So we do have a Dragapult EX here, but the Dracloak has an ability Telling Spirit. Once a turn, you can look at the top two cards of your deck, put one of them into your hand and the other on the bottom of your deck. So it's always great when stage 2 has a good stage 1 to support it. Also thinking that like this will probably just be a TM evolution deck, so you want a bunch of Draclocks on your board, and then you evolve one of them every time you need an attacker, because this Dragapult EX is going to be your main attacker. 320 health. For Fire and Psychic, it does 200 damage, and then you can put 6 damage counters on your opponent's benched Pokemon in any way you like. So pretty vanilla card, but it's 320 health with no weakness, and it's doing a good amount of damage. So I think that's really what we want to be looking at here. If there's a way to like chain this with Tauros and accelerate an extra energy at some point, or maybe move energies and then Tauros it and then evolve a new Dracloak, I think this card can see some play, especially because of that 0 weakness. Then we have Tatsugiri. This card's actually really good. The ability to attract customers should have been called Stellar Fish. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active spot, you may look at the top 6 cards of your deck, and you get a supporter card. So great kind of Pokegear-like effect, but on a Pokemon. You can use the rescue board because it only has 1 retreat. So yeah, this Tatsugiri will likely be seeing play. Okay, so this Blissey EX, this one kind of answers a couple of things that I've said so far in this first impressions video. It has the ability Happy Switch. Once during your turn, you may move a basic energy from one of your Pokemon to another of your Pokemon. So I just mentioned for Dragapult EX, maybe we're going to want to move energy around so we could Toro up a damaged Dragapult and then evolve a new one. This Blissey EX would work there because we want to move energy from a Pokemon to another Pokemon. It would also work, though, with, I'm scrolling a lot here, with the Grass Ogrepon. If we want to use like 2 Ogrepon EXs, both use Teal Dance, and then move one of the energy to the other one so they can have 3 energy on it. So I think this Blissey EX is actually really cool design to come out in this set because there's multiple Pokemon. I've just noticed, like, off of this first first, second, third glance at these cards that could use this kind of switching ability for the energies. So yeah, I think this is really cool, and it has 300 health, so it's not going to be a massive liability because your opponent's probably going to have to do some work to knock this thing out, especially if it's just sitting on your bench. So this Blissey EX, I think it could actually be a catalyst for some strategies. I think that's really cool. And then we reach the trainer cards again. So that is those are my first impressions on the Mask of Change cards. Of course, this is going to be combined with the Crimson Haze. That set has like Iron Thorns EX, Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. Those cards are really crazy. And I will be looking at those on the channel eventually. So yeah, let me know what you think about my impressions on these cards. Did I skip by any cards that are actually good? Did I overrate any cards? I know I also asked about like those technical machine rulings for the cards that say that they can attack twice. So if anybody knows about that, leave it in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.